It has been 6 weeks since I left the hospital. Not as a patient, as an employee. I quit the job. No notice, no goodbye. On Tuesday at 7:14 in the morning, I walked out of Mercy Lane Memorial and went straight home. I shut all the doors and windows and sat in a dark room for 3 straight days. I didn't eat properly, didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that sound again. The sound coming from the other side of room 12's door. And every time I opened my eyes, I reassured myself I wasn't there again. My own ceiling above me. The walls, not that sickly green color. I know, I have to tell all of this, because no matter how much I want to forget, I can't. I've told myself 1,000 times I was tired, I was sleepless, maybe I had broken down mentally. But no. What I saw was real. What I heard was too. And what's in room 12 of Mercy Lane Memorial? It's still there. Tonight too. Waiting for another wrong person to open that door. My name is Daniel Ashworth, age 31. I was a night shift orderly at an old hospital in a small town. I won't say the name of the town or the real location of the hospital, because if anyone goes there out of curiosity, they might not come back the same way. Last year in March, I took the job. Not a job, you could call it an attempt to survive. My previous warehouse job had gone. Money was tight. My friend Marcus had said the hospital needed someone for the night shift. Easy work, he said. Moving patients, cleaning beds, wiping up vomit. That's it. I needed something easy in my life then. Mercy Lane Memorial wasn't a big hospital. An old, tired building. Long, dark corridors, half-broken lights, the smell of old disinfectant on the walls. Some parts were so quiet it felt like the building itself was dying. I worked from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. The first few nights everything was normal. Then, I heard the name Room 12 for the first time. Nothing unusual happened in the first 2 weeks. I quickly learned the layout of the hospital. On the ground floor were the ER, radiology, and offices. On the second floor, where I spent most of my time, were the patient wards and a small ICU. Most of the third floor was closed. Dark, locked. I was only told, no need to go upstairs. I didn't ask questions either. Very few people worked the night shift. 2 or 3 nurses, 1 security guard who watched something on his phone all night, and me. Marcus could be spotted occasionally, but most nights the long corridors were nearly empty. And strangely, I had started to enjoy that silence. After 2 in the morning, the hospital changed, as if the whole world had stopped. Somewhere in the distance, the slow beep of a monitor, the sound of ventilation, a metallic tremor inside the pipes. Sometimes it felt like the building was breathing. I had gotten along well with the nurses too. Karen was tough, but calm. Denise always talked loudly, made everyone laugh. Priya spoke very little, but always gave a tired smile when you passed her. Then there was Elaine Marsh. The moment I saw her, I felt uneasy. Late 40s, thin face, sharp eyes, gray hair tied tightly back. When she looked at someone, it seemed like she wasn't reading their face, but something inside. The other nurses respected her, but it felt closer to fear than respect. The third night, it was nearly midnight. Near the supply closet at the end of the med-surg corridor, Elaine called me aside. The corridor was unusually quiet then. She said in a low voice, "Getting used to the work?" I smiled lightly and said, "Yes, more or less." "Good." Elaine nodded, slowly, then stayed silent for a few seconds. And in that small silence, I understood. The words weren't something ordinary. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw tightened. "There are some rules about the night shift," she said in a low voice. "Not written down officially anywhere, but knowing them is important." I had thought she might say something about the doctors or some troublesome patient, some ordinary hospital gossip type of thing. But she said, "Room 12." Something stirred, faintly in my chest. The room at the very end of the med-surg ward, where the corridor came to an end, beside the fire exit. I had walked past it many times, always seen the door closed. I said, "I've seen the room, but never gone inside." Elaine immediately said, "You haven't, and you never will." I smiled lightly and said, "Why? Is it a storeroom?" "No," she said. "It's a patient room, and it's always occupied." Then she leaned forward a little. "But you will never open the door, never look through the glass. And the most important thing," she paused, "don't go near that room after midnight." I felt like someone was about to laugh. Maybe Denise was hiding somewhere pulling a prank, but Elaine's face didn't change at all. She was completely serious. I said, "I don't understand any of this." "You don't need to understand," she said in a cold voice. "Just follow the rules." The corridor was unusually quiet then. Somewhere in the distance, a heart monitor was slowly beeping. Elaine said again, "If a call light comes from room 12, ignore it. If you hear any sound from inside, keep walking. And if anyone, whoever it may be, tells you to check that room, you say no. Then go straight and find me." My throat was going dry. I said, "But what if there's an emergency?" She didn't let me finish. "The thing that's in room 12, she said slowly. "It's beyond your help." A few seconds of silence hung between us. Then she looked into my eyes and said, "We're clear, Daniel?" I don't know why, but I was genuinely scared then. Still, I nodded and said, "Yes, clear." Elaine nodded once and walked away. The sound of her shoes was slowly fading into the corridor. Talk, talk, talk. A strangely calm, strangely cold rhythm. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to understand exactly what had just happened. Over the next few days, I didn't think about room 12. Actually, there was no need to. The door was always closed. No patient chart outside, no name, nothing. I never saw any doctor go into that room. No food went in, no medication went in. As if a dead door stood at the end of the corridor. And on a busy night shift, ignoring a closed door is very easy. But human curiosity is a very patient thing. It slowly seeps into your head. I began to notice small things. The first was the light. All patient room doors had a narrow strip of glass beside them. Light usually came out from inside, but room 12, always dark. Day, night, always. It felt like there was no light inside at all. The second thing was the clipboard. Every room had a patient chart hanging outside, but room 12's was always empty, completely blank, as if the room had no official existence at all. Then came the third thing. Sound. That day around 1:30 at night, I was working in the linen closet beside room 10. The corridor was completely empty. Just the distant, slow beep of a monitor and the humming of the ventilation. Suddenly, talk. I froze. The sound had come from inside room 12, not loud, very soft, as if someone on the other side of the door knocked once with their knuckles. Then silence again. I didn't move. I stood there, pressing the sheet in my hands against my chest. It felt like the entire corridor had suddenly gone cold. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, no more sound. Just the old hospital's humming. In the end, I told myself, maybe a patient shifted in bed. Something bumped against the wall. Normal thing, bound to happen. Still, from that day on, whenever I walked through that corridor, my eyes would go to room 12's door without my realizing. 4 nights later, I heard the sound again. Same time, same corridor, but this time, not once. Talk, 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 3 knocks, slow, at equal intervals, as if someone was deliberately measuring the rhythm. and this time I was much closer. I was changing the sheets on the bed of a discharged patient in room 11. Room 12 was right next door. The sounds were coming through the shared wall, so close that I had felt the faint vibration of the wall too. Someone was knocking on the door, deliberately. I slowly came out of room 11 and stood in the corridor. In front of me was room 12's door, closed, dark, no light in the glass beside the door. I took one step forward, then stopped. Elaine's voice surfaced again in my head. "Don't open the door. Don't look through the glass." I stepped back and came away, but from that night on I couldn't ignore room 12. I started paying attention. The sounds became regular. Not every night, but 2 or 3 times a week. Always after midnight. Sometimes 1 knock, sometimes 3. One night I heard 7. The last knocks were coming so slowly, as if someone's heartbeat was gradually stopping. I noticed something else too. Walking past room 12, the corridor felt cold. Not too much, but enough. The body could tell. One night I checked the ceiling vent. Closed. The entire airflow cut off, meaning someone had deliberately isolated that section. Then the floor. The old linoleum floor throughout the hospital was full of scuff marks, but the few feet of space in front of room 12's door, abnormally clean, gleaming, as if every day someone stood there and scrubbed it clean. But I hadn't done it. Then who had? And the strangest thing, nobody ever talked about room 12. Never. Hospital staff talk about everything. Patients, deaths, strange incidents, doctor problems. But room 12 was as if it didn't exist. One night I was sitting with Denise in the break room. It was around 3 in the morning. We were drinking bad coffee. I said casually, "Hey, what's the deal with room 12? Elaine told me not to go anywhere near it." Denise's expression didn't change, but something inside her eyes changed. For 1 second, as if suddenly some switch had turned off inside. Denise stared at me for a few seconds, then slowly said, "What Elaine told you. She told all of us the same thing." I said, "But why? What's wrong with the room?" She set down the coffee cup. "Daniel." Her voice dropped lower now. "Don't ask questions about room 12. Not me, not Karen, not anyone." I was about to say something again, but she said a little louder this time, "Leave it alone," then got up and left. After that day, she didn't say a single word to me for the rest of the shift, and that was when I first understood. The real fear of room 12 wasn't what was on the other side of the door. The real fear was everyone knew. Everyone was afraid. But no one said anything. I could have forgotten everything right then. Done the job, taken the money, gotten through the night. But that was no longer possible, because the knocking was still happening. The corridor was still cold. The glass of the door was still dark, and every time I walked past it, I felt something was calling to me. A whisper that couldn't be heard with the ears. A pull, slowly seeping into my head. Then came that Tuesday night. I can still remember the exact time. 12:47. I was going through the east hallway toward the fire exit. The entire floor was silent. Most patients asleep. Coming near room 12, I started walking slowly again, the way I always did. And then I heard a new sound. Not a knock, not footsteps. The sound of crying. Someone was crying from inside, very softly, a breathless kind of crying. It seemed like a woman, crying in a whisper, the kind of crying that makes you feel the person has been suffering alone for a long time. I stopped in front of the door. My entire body had gone rigid, because there was something in that crying that grabbed directly at the empathy inside a person and pulled. It felt like someone inside was asking for help. And at the same time, Elaine's warnings were screaming inside my head. "Don't open the door! Don't go near it. It's beyond your help." The crying wasn't stopping. Slowly, it was becoming more broken. It felt like someone was crying while breathing. Sound coming from inside the chest. I leaned closer to the door, tried to listen with my ear pressed against it. Then, I heard the word. Please. A single word, but clear. So clear there was no chance of mishearing. Someone inside was saying, "Please." My body had gone cold, but at the same time, an odd pull was working inside my head. It felt like I had to open the door. Someone inside was asking for help. Before I could think, my hand had moved toward the door handle. The metal handle was cold as ice. And right then, "Step away from the door, Daniel." Elaine's voice, from behind. I've heard the voices of many frightened people in my life. But what was in her voice in that moment? It wasn't just fear. It was controlled terror. She hadn't screamed. Yet every word was coming out as if the slightest mistake would cause something terrible to happen. I immediately pulled my hand back and looked behind me. Elaine was standing in the middle of the corridor, completely still. All color had drained from her face. It looked like there was no blood in her body at all. I said in a trembling voice, "Someone is crying inside. Someone is asking for help." Elaine said without a second's delay, "There is no one in that room for you." Then slowly, but in a very firm voice, "Walk toward me, right now." Right then I noticed the crying had stopped, completely suddenly, as if someone had switched it off. The entire hallway went dead silent again. Just the humming of the fluorescent lights and the distant beep of machines. I slowly walked toward Elaine. She had kept her eyes on me, even after I walked past her. Then she turned and stared at room 12's door for a few seconds. I could clearly see. Her lips were moving, very slowly, as if counting something, or reading something. Then she took me to the nurse's station. Didn't say a word the whole way. There she told me to sit, stood in front of me with her arms folded, and asked, "What did you hear?" I said, "A woman was crying," then said, "Please." Elaine's jaw tightened. "Did you open the door?" "No." "Did you look through the glass?" "No." Elaine stayed quiet for a few seconds looking at me, then asked, "Did you see anything? Light, shadow, movement?" I shook my head. "No." The glass was dark as before. She slowly let out a breath, and in that moment I understood. It was a breath of relief. "Good," she whispered. "That's good." I couldn't stay quiet anymore. "Elaine, who is actually in that room?" She said immediately, "I told you on the first night, the room is occupied." "But by whom?" I said. "Which patient?" Her eyes went cold. "The patient in that room is not your concern." I said a little louder now. "But I heard a person crying. She was asking for help." "That is not a patient." She cut me off now, and for the first time, I heard a crack in her voice. A very small crack, as if the composure held together for so long had broken for just 1 second. She said in a low voice, "What you heard is not what you think it is. Do you understand?" I slowly shook my head. "No," I said truthfully. "I don't understand anything." Elaine stared at me for a long time, then slowly pulled a chair over and sat in front of me. I had never seen her so close before. Her voice was almost a whisper now. "How long have you been working here, Daniel?" 6 weeks. In these 6 weeks, have you ever seen anyone go into room 12? I thought, truly thought. Every night, every shift, every time I walked through the hallway. Then I understood. "No," she asked again. "Have you ever seen a meal tray go in?" "No." "Doctor? Lab tech? Chaplain? Anyone? No, no one. Then she asked the last question, very slowly. Have you ever seen the door of room 12 open? The question made something inside my chest suddenly go cold. Because I already knew the answer. The door had always been closed. Always. I said in a low voice. No. Elaine slowly said, I have been working in this hospital for 23 years. She paused for 1 second, then said, in these 23 years, I have never once seen the door of room 12 open. I think the silence of that moment was the loudest sound of my life. I said in a dry voice. Then, who is inside? Elaine shook her head. I don't know. There was no drama in her voice. That was the most frightening thing. Nobody knows. When I joined here, the room was occupied then too. When Karen joined, it was too. It was before that as well. She said slowly, there is no patient for room 12 in the hospital chart system. The bed management system shows it as out of service. But the door is always locked. My hands were going cold. Elaine said again, and on some nights, sounds come from inside. I whispered, knocking. She nodded, knocking, sometimes crying, sometimes humming, a melody nobody can recognize. Then she paused a little and said in a low voice, and very rarely, it calls people by name. The hair on the back of my neck stood up instantly. I slowly asked, has it ever called your name? Elaine didn't answer, not at all. A few seconds later, she only said, the rules I gave you, they're not mine. The previous charge nurse gave them to me. Someone gave them to her before. These rules are very old. Her eyes came up directly to mine now. The rules are very simple. Don't enter room 12. Don't open the door. Don't look through the glass. Then very slowly added, especially after midnight. I said, why? She answered, without the slightest delay. Because that is when it wakes up. She said it so normally that it didn't sound like the dialogue of a horror story. It felt like she was stating some clinical fact of the hospital. After midnight, it wakes up. My throat was going dry. I asked, what if someone breaks the rules? Elaine slowly stood up, straightened the folds of her scrubs, then looked at me with an expression that I can only call exhausted grief. She said, those who break the rules don't work here anymore. She paused, then added in a low voice, and that's not because they quit. She left, and I sat in that chair at the nurse's station for a long time. Everything was spinning together in my head. A hospital room that has been occupied for decades, but no patient, no doctor, no chart, a locked door that nobody has ever seen open, and a rule that has passed from generation to generation, a rule of fear. To stay alive that night, I should have quit. But I didn't. I went back to work. The next few shifts were unusually calm. Room 12 completely silent. No knocking, no crying, nothing. I walked through the hallway with my eyes forward, walked quickly and past it. The door still closed, dark, cold. I told myself, whatever it may be, it's not my business. I'm just an orderly. Change sheets, mop floors, that's it. But strangely, that silence was worse than the sounds. Because sound at least proved there was something inside, but silence, it's like an empty hole, and a person's mind fills empty spaces with fear on its own. And then I began to understand. The real thing might be worse than my imagination. I started researching, not at the hospital. I wasn't foolish enough to go rummaging through the records room. I did it at home. Before work, I would search for hours on my laptop, but there was very little information about Mercy Lane Memorial online. A simple website, visiting hours, department lists, some bad reviews, some local news articles, nothing unusual. Then I started going through old archives, construction records from the 1960s, old newspapers, building history. And that's when I found it. A small article from 1983. The headline was "Mercy Lane Nurse Found Dead in Hospital Room." A pressure had begun building inside my chest. The story was short, vague, the way local newspapers of that time were. A 34-year-old nurse named Catherine Hollis had been found dead in a patient room on the second floor. Official cause of death: cardiac arrest. No foul play. The hospital had offered condolences. That was it. But in a follow-up article a week later, there was one line that made my breath stop. The room in which Ms. Hollis died has been temporarily closed. Temporarily closed. In 1983. More than 40 years ago. I searched more about Catherine Hollis. Found almost nothing. An obituary, an old nursing newsletter, and one fact. She had worked at Mercy Lane for 6 years. Night shift. My hands had frozen on the keyboard then, because in my head only one thought was going around room 12. Whose rule? I started searching more about Mercy Lane. Hour after hour going through old archives, reading fragmented records, and finally found 2 more incidents. In 1991, an orderly named Thomas Wren suddenly disappeared. He was reported after missing 3 consecutive shifts. Police searched, found nothing. The official report said he had probably left town of his own will. But buried within the public record was a co-worker's statement. That made my entire body go cold. Tom had become obsessed with a room. He said there was something inside that wasn't supposed to be there. We told him to let it go. But Tom was very stubborn. One of the rooms. The room wasn't named, but I knew. Then the 2007 incident. A CNA named Grace Liu suddenly had a mental breakdown during the night shift. She was found sitting on the floor of the east hallway, completely unresponsive. She was later sent to a psychiatric facility and never returned to work. But the worst part was the last line of the incident report. I technically wasn't supposed to see that file, but one night, Marcus had left the maintenance office unlocked, and I couldn't stop my curiosity. Written in faded blue ink in the margin of the report, by hand door was found ajar, resealed per protocol. Something sank inside my chest. Door was found ajar, meaning the door had been opened. Someone had opened room 12, and then resealed. The word was going around in my head. Not closed, not shut, resealed. As if it wasn't just a door, as if whatever was on the other side had to be kept inside. I sat in my apartment for an hour staring at just that one word. Resealed. I should have quit right then, but it was too late by then, because the mystery had gotten into my head by then. Like a hook, the more I pulled, the deeper it went. And the very next night, I made the worst decision of my life. I decided I would look inside room 12, not open the door, not go inside, just take one look through the frosted glass. I told myself Elaine had specifically warned about after midnight, and it was 11:15 p.m. then, meaning still 45 minutes left. When people want to make terrible mistakes, they can make very beautiful excuses for themselves. I had too. I told myself maybe safe until before midnight. Looking back, now I understand. The logic was complete madness, but in that moment, standing in the hallway, heart pounding, I felt like I had found a loophole. A small gap through which I could take a quick peek. I waited until the hallway was empty. Karen was busy with medication rounds on the other side. Denise was on break, and Elaine was in the step-down ICU covering for Priya, who had called in sick. East hallway completely empty. I slowly went and stood in front of room 12. The frosted glass strip beside the door was at eye level. Narrow, tall, same as a regular patient room, made for looking inside from outside. But room 12's glass was different, much darker. I slowly brought my face close. At first I couldn't see anything. The frosting on the glass was so thick that everything inside looked blurry. It seemed like someone had applied layer after layer of coating over years and years. Still, it wasn't completely dark inside. There was a very faint bluish light somewhere, pale like moonlight coming through water. I leaned closer. My nose was nearly touching the glass. And then I understood how cold the door was. Not ordinary cold. The kind of cold that aches in your nose, makes your eyes burn. I squinted and tried to look inside. Then slowly I could make out a shape, a hospital bed, in the middle of the room. And on the bed, someone was lying. At least it looked that way. A body-shaped form under the sheet like a human. Head on the pillow, both hands at the sides, without any movement at all. I kept staring, but after a few seconds I understood one thing. It wasn't breathing, not at all. No chest rising and falling, no movement. Yet I couldn't take my eyes away, because I was getting a feeling then. That's hard to put into words. It felt like I was looking at it, and at the same time, it was looking at me. A mutual awareness, as if the thing lying in the darkness knew I was standing outside, knew I was watching it, and now, it was fully conscious. I slowly pulled my face away from the glass. The thing inside hadn't moved. The room was the same as before. Dark, cold, silent, but my body was screaming. Not my head, my body. Every nerve, every muscle was saying the same thing. Get out of here. Right now. I slowly started backing away. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. Then, a sound came from inside. A sound that I still hear in my sleep. A long, slow exhale, as if something had been holding its breath for a very long time. And now it let it out. The sound lasted nearly 5 seconds, coming muffled through the door, but unmistakable. And as the sound stopped, the entire hospital went silent. Not the ordinary hospital silence of night, complete silence. No sound of ventilation, no beep of monitors, no buzz of lights. For 1 second, it felt like someone had muted all the sound of the entire world. I was standing in the hallway. Inside, complete, empty silence. Then suddenly all sounds came back together, and I left the hallway without looking back. I didn't run, but I have never walked that fast in my life. That day I couldn't sleep. I went home, pulled the curtain, lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling for hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that shape. A motionless body lying in bluish darkness. That wasn't breathing, yet somehow was conscious. And the worst thing was, it felt like a connection had formed after I had looked at it, as if now it could see me too, even from a distance. The next night I went back to work, because I needed money. I had promised myself no more curiosity, no more looking. Room 12 would just remain a closed door. I would only walk past it. I stuck to that decision for exactly 3 hours. At 2:17 a.m. I was sitting in the break room eating a sandwich. Suddenly the overhead speaker crackled. Then a woman's voice floated out. "Daniel, to room 12. Daniel, to room 12, please." My entire body froze. The voice sounded like Elaine's. Same tone, same rhythm, but something was wrong. The voice was abnormally clear. Completely crystal clear. No static, no background noise. As if not a human voice. A recording. I sat and stared at the speaker. Didn't move. 30 seconds later, again. "Daniel, to room 12. Daniel, to room 12, please." Same voice. Same perfect clarity. I put down the sandwich and went to the nurse's station. Elaine was there writing charts. I asked, "Did you page me?" She looked up. "No." Someone called me to room 12 on the PA system. Elaine's pen stopped in her hand. She slowly put the pen down. "Say that again." I told her everything. Without saying anything, she went toward the PA control unit. The switch was off, the entire system off. She slowly said, "Nobody used the PA tonight." My throat was going dry. But I heard. Elaine turned to face me now, and for the first time, I saw real fear on her face. Raw fear. She asked in a low voice, "Did you look through the glass?" I didn't answer. She said even more slowly now, "Daniel, did you look inside room 12? "Last night," I said slowly, "before midnight. I thought that time would be safe." Elaine closed her eyes. Both her hands were gripping the edge of the counter so tightly that her knuckles had gone white. She said nothing for a few seconds, just breathing slowly. Then when she opened her eyes, I saw they had gone wet. She whispered, "You looked." It wasn't a question. It was a diagnosis. I quickly said, "I didn't see anything properly. Just a shape. On the bed. It wasn't even moving." Elaine shook her head. "It doesn't need to move." Her voice sounded dry. "It just needs to know you were there." She quickly wiped her eyes, a completely mechanical movement, then said in a low voice, "You looked at it. Now it knows your face. It knows your name." Something was sinking inside my chest. Elaine said, "It's using the PA system because that's how it works. It learns patterns, learns systems, then starts calling." I said in a trembling voice, "What is it actually?" Elaine stayed quiet for a long time, then very softly said, "I don't know." And that honest answer was what frightened me most. Because if Elaine didn't know after all these years, then nobody knew. She said, "I only know one thing. As long as the rules are followed, it stays inside room 12. As long as nobody acknowledges it, it stays quiet." Then she looked directly at me. "But once someone establishes contact, it starts reaching." My throat was going dry. She said, "Today it used the PA. Tomorrow maybe it'll call your name in the hallway. Maybe you'll see someone standing in the corner of your eye. Maybe it'll feel like someone is standing right behind you." Her voice dropped even lower. "It will want to bring you back near room 12. It will want to get you to open the door." I slowly asked, "And if I open the door?" Elaine's tired, wet eyes came up to mine. "Catherine Hollis opened the door." My chest shook. She said, "In 1983. She was found dead inside the room. The official report said cardiac arrest." She paused, then said in a low voice, "But some of those who were on duty that day, a few of them were still here when I joined." I whispered, "What did they say?" Elaine's face went strangely pale. "They said Catherine's face was wrong. My body was going cold." "Wrong how?" Elaine stayed quiet for a few seconds, then said, "She was smiling. Such a wide smile that they had never seen in their lives." Her voice was nearly a whisper now, as if she had seen something incredibly beautiful. Something that she couldn't stop smiling at. Even after her heart had stopped, my breathing was getting heavier. Elaine said slowly, "And you know the worst part? When they went into the room," she stopped. "There was nothing inside. No patient, no equipment. Just Catherine, lying on the floor, smiling. Then they shut the door, and never opened it again." I said in a dry voice, "But you said the room was occupied." Elaine slowly nodded. "Occupied indeed." Her voice was so calm that it was even more frightening. That's the whole thing. Room 12 is never empty. It can't be. She stayed quiet for a few seconds, then said in a low voice, "Because what's inside is not a person." Something cold was slowly gathering inside my chest. Elaine said, "It stays inside the shape of a hospital room, lies there in the shape of a patient, and waits for someone to come inside." It felt like the floor was swaying. My vision was going blurry. I gripped the counter tightly so I wouldn't fall. With great effort, I said, "What do I do now?" Elaine said without the slightest delay, "Follow the rules. Completely strictly. Don't even go near room 12. Don't acknowledge any communication related to room 12. Not a PA announcement, not a sound, not a voice." Her eyes were locked directly on mine. "If someone calls your name, and you can't see them, don't look back. Don't answer. Just keep walking. Then find me or another nurse," I said in a dry voice. "For how long?" she said slowly. "Until it loses interest. This has happened before. People looked and still survived. But it takes time. A few weeks, maybe more." Then in a very low voice, "It has to be kept starving. No attention, no fear, no curiosity. Nothing," I whispered. "And if I can't?" Elaine didn't answer. There was no need, because I already knew the answer. Catherine Hollis. A dead body lying on the floor of an empty room. A face full of an unnatural smile. That night was the longest night of my life. I worked through the entire shift as if walking through a minefield. I jumped at every sound. Every time I saw a shadow in the corner of my eye, I wanted to turn and look. The PA system crackled 2 more times. Both times the same crystal clear voice. "Daniel, to room 12. I didn't respond. Didn't even look at the speaker. Just kept working with my eyes on the floor. It felt like I was walking as a ghost inside myself. Around 3:30 a.m., I was in the west hallway, as far from room 12 as possible. And then, I heard footsteps behind me. Bare footsteps. The sound of bare feet. Not a nurse's soft shoe. Not a patient's slippers. Skin on linoleum. Slow. Like walking deliberately. Pad. 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 My entire body had frozen, but I didn't look back. I kept walking. The footsteps kept walking too. At the same pace, neither coming closer nor going farther, as if copying my walking rhythm. I walked faster. It got faster too. I suddenly stopped, and at that exact same moment the footsteps stopped too. I was standing in the hallway. In front of me, the west fire exit, and behind. Someone was breathing, slowly, deeply, the same kind of breathing that I had heard from the other side of room 12's door. A long, slow exhale, as if something was savoring the smell of the air. My entire body had frozen. Right then, "Don't look back." Elaine's voice. But not from behind this time. From the right. I turned my eyes and saw her standing in the doorway of room 3. It seemed like she had gone inside and hidden suddenly. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking behind me, at whatever was there. Her face was tight, but her eyes, I had seen real terror in her eyes. The pulse in her neck was trembling. She said in a low voice, "Walk toward me slowly. Don't look back." I started walking. 3 steps, 5 steps, 7. The breathing behind didn't move, didn't follow, stayed in the same spot, as if stuck to the floor of the hallway. As I reached room 3, Elaine stepped aside. I went inside. She pulled the door, not completely, left a small gap and kept looking toward the hallway. I whispered, "Was it quiet. She stared toward the hallway for nearly a minute, then slowly let out a breath, closed the door completely. "It's gone." My voice was trembling. "What was it?" Elaine stayed quiet for a few seconds, then said, "I couldn't see clearly. The hallway lights had gone strange. The part behind you was much darker than normal," she said, slowly, as if the light was being absorbed. My hands were going cold, and inside that darkness there was a shape, standing, like a person. She paused, then added in a whisper, "Almost." I asked, "How tall was it?" She looked at me strangely. "Why does that matter?" I said slowly. "Because I want to know. What thing is following me?" Elaine immediately shook her head. "It's not hunting you yet. It's testing you, seeing whether you respond." She leaned closer and said in a low voice, "Every time you react, stop, look back, acknowledge it. You give it something. You confirm the connection is real, and the more real the connection, the stronger it becomes." My throat had dried up. I said slowly, "So what do I do when something is standing behind me in the hallway?" "I just keep walking," Elaine said in a completely calm voice. "Yes, keep walking. Always keep walking." The rest of the shift had passed unusually quietly. No more PA announcements. No more footsteps. But the air of the hospital had changed. It felt like the static electricity before a storm had gathered all around. And the worst feeling was it felt like the entire building was watching me. Not just room 12, the entire hospital, as if the thing inside that room had gotten into the wall's floor wiring, and now was observing me through the entire infrastructure. I went home, had slept only 2 hours. And in those 2 hours I had a dream. An endless hallway, green-colored walls, above it a flickering fluorescent light, and the hallway had no end. I was walking, and far away, impossibly far away, a door was standing. Inside the dream I somehow knew that was room 12, and the door was open, not fully, just slightly ajar. A little light was coming out from inside. I woke up gasping, choking on my own breath. For the next 3 shifts I followed everything Elaine said. Didn't even go near room 12. The PA system announced every night. Same artificially clear voice, same Elaine's voice. I didn't respond. 2 nights I heard footsteps again, always behind me, always copying my walking speed. Still, I didn't look back. Worked with my head down, gave it nothing, and for a few days it seemed like it was working. The PA announcements lessened. The footsteps got lighter. The feeling that always made me feel someone was watching me, that also eased a little, like ocean waves slowly receding. Then Thursday came. Thursday was Marcus's maintenance night. He was in the building, had said he would fix a faulty light on the 3rd floor. I didn't see him all shift. Nothing unusual. Marcus usually worked alone. At 1:40 a.m. my phone vibrated. A text from Marcus. "Yo D, you got a minute? Need help bringing something down from the 3rd floor?" I replied. "Where?" He wrote, "East stairwell, 3rd floor landing." East stairwell, the one right next to room 12. I walked toward the stairwell. Pushing open the heavy steel door, a slow groaning sound came. Inside was concrete and cold. At each landing, a cage light was burning. I went up to the 3rd floor, then pushed open the landing door. The 3rd floor was nearly dark. Not completely. The red light of the exit signs on both sides faintly illuminated the hallway. Long corridor. Patient rooms closed on both sides. Unused, for years and years. In the air, the smell of old dust and paint, and the entire floor was so quiet, as if the place hadn't been for people for a long time. "Marcus," I called. No answer. I took out my phone and called him. Straight to voicemail. Something sank inside my chest. I looked at the texts again. East stairwell, 3rd floor landing. I was standing exactly there, but Marcus wasn't there. I took a few steps into the hallway. On the empty floor, my shoe sounds were coming back like echoes. The 3rd floor was completely stripped. No nurse's station, no equipment, no carts. Just a long hallway and closed doors on both sides. The place wasn't just abandoned, it felt forgotten. I called again. "Marcus!" This time, a sound came from far down the hallway. Click, like the sound of a metal latch opening. I stopped. Then slowly, a creaking sound. The sound of a door opening on dry hinges. Slow, deliberately. And then, from very far down the dark hallway, Marcus's voice floated over. "Over here, man. Last door on the right." My body had almost started walking. Almost, but right then something stopped me. The voice was Marcus's. Same tone, same casual way of speaking. But, again, the same problem. The voice was too clear, abnormally clear. No echo. No hallway ambiance. As if not a real person. Someone had recorded Marcus's voice and was playing it through an invisible speaker. I was standing still in the hallway, and right then I felt the cold. Room 12's cold. The same aching cold that goes into the sinuses. It wasn't supposed to be here. I was 2 floors up. Still, the cold was spreading all around, as if something was breathing it out into the air. I didn't want to stand there for another second. I turned and came out through the stairwell door. I was taking the stairs 2 at a time. Didn't run, because I had learned something by then. Running means panic, and panic means reaction, and reaction means feeding it. I quickly came down and entered the lobby, and there I saw Marcus. He was standing talking with the security guard. Completely normally. I said breathlessly, "Did you text me?" Marcus frowned. "Text? No." He took out his phone from his pocket. "Phone's been dead all night. Forgot to bring my charger." The screen was completely black. Dead. Something like ice went down inside my chest. I took out my own phone and showed him the texts. Everything was still there. Marcus's name. His number. "Yo, D, you got a minute?" "East stairwell, 3rd floor landing." "Down here, man. Last door on the right." Marcus stared at the screen for a few seconds, then slowly said, "Dude, I didn't send these. I've been down here for the last hour." My hands were trembling. Without saying anything, I deleted the texts, then walked away from there. Because I had understood by then it was learning. Adapting. First the PA system, then voices in the hallway, then footsteps. Now, phone messages. The hospital's systems, communication networks. It was using everything to try to reach me, trying to bring me back near room 12, and the worst thing was, it had almost worked. If I had walked down that 3rd floor hallway, toward that voice, toward that open door, what would I have found? Another empty room, or something that wasn't supposed to be empty. I told Elaine everything, left out not a single detail. She listened in complete silence the whole time. And the more I told her, the paler her face became. After hearing everything, she said nothing for a long time, then slowly said, "This is escalating." My throat had gone dry. Meaning, she looked at me, much faster than normal. "Has this happened before?" She nodded. Twice. Once in 2003, another time in 2012. Both times someone had looked inside, through room 12's glass. Then the manifestations began. Voice. PA pages. Presence. I slowly asked, were they alive? Elaine said, yes, because they followed protocol. How long did it take? A few weeks. Sometimes more than a month. She paused, but eventually the activity subsided. As long as the rules were followed. Then she added in a low voice, but no previous incident involved the third floor. My chest went cold. Room 12 was always limited to the second floor. This time it went to the third floor. It used your phone. She didn't finish the rest. I whispered. What does this mean? Elaine stayed quiet for a few seconds, then said, you gave it more than you thought. Looking through the glass wasn't just breaking a rule. It was an invitation. My throat was going dry. Elaine said slowly, and the thing inside room 12 takes invitations very seriously. I gripped the counter tightly. So what do I do? Keep my head down for a month and hope it gets bored? She said in a calm voice. That is the protocol. And if this time the protocol doesn't work? Elaine stared at me for a moment, then took out a folded paper from her scrub pocket. Old paper. The edges had gone soft from being folded over and over. She unfolded the paper on the counter. It was a handwritten list. Many different handwritings, different inks. It seemed like different people had added to it over years and years. At the top in block letters was written Room 12. Protocols. My chest was slowly going heavy. I started reading below. Do not enter Room 12. Do not open the door. Do not look through the glass after midnight. Do not respond to any communication from Room 12. Reading each line, it felt like these weren't a horror story. These were real survival instructions. Then my eyes stopped at one line. If you learn the name, forget it immediately. My hands went cold. Further below, if you feel a presence behind you, do not turn around. Continue walking until you reach another person. Then, if the door of room 12 is found open, my breathing slowed. Do not look inside. Close the door immediately. Use both hands. Do not let go of the handle until you hear the latch engage fully. Below that, another line. After closing the door, wash your hands. I slowly looked up. Why Rule 9? Elaine said in a low voice. In 1996, an orderly closed the door during an incident. Then a skin condition started on his hands. Never healed. Something cold stirred inside my chest. Then I read the very last line at the bottom of the list. Its handwriting was different, shaky, as if written in fear. If it speaks to you directly, leave the building. My eyes stuck on that line. Elaine said slowly. Rule 10 was added in 2012. A CNA. Robert. He heard a voice. Not the PA. Not any familiar person's voice. A completely new voice, I whispered. What kind? Elaine's eyes went vacant. He said the voice was coming from everywhere. And also from nowhere. As if someone was speaking from inside his own chest. My entire body was going cold. Elaine said in a low voice. He didn't leave the building. Before the shift ended, he had forgotten his own name. I couldn't speak. Elaine slowly added. He never recovered. He's still in a long-term care facility. Sits quietly. Can't recognize anyone. Doesn't speak either. I was staring at the list. It felt like it wasn't paper, but a survival manual. I slowly said, meaning if it speaks directly to me, I leave the building. Elaine didn't wait 1 second. Immediately, Don't stand for even a moment." There was such certainty in her voice, as if she already knew what would happen if this rule wasn't followed. I folded the paper and gave it back to her. She very carefully put it in her pocket, the way a person handles something sacred. Then I went back to work, finished the shift, went home, but couldn't sleep. The next week was a war against exhaustion. Every night, Room 12 would try something new. The PA announcements kept going, but now it wasn't just calling me to Room 12. It started talking. One night, this floated from the speaker. "Daniel, she's asking for you." Another night, patient in Room 12 would like to discuss his discharge plan. Every message, perfectly professional, exactly like a nurse calmly making an announcement. But the problem was, the PA system was off. I checked every time, power off. Still, the voice was coming. Where from? I didn't know. The footsteps changed too. Before it walked behind me. Now it walked on the other side of walls. I was walking through the hallway, and footsteps from inside Room 8 were matching my speed. Then, Room 9. Then Room 10. As if something was moving through the walls alongside me. When I stopped, it stopped. When I walked, it walked. I checked every room each time. All empty, always empty. Text messages came again, twice. Once pretending to be Denise. "Come to the east hallway." Another time from an unknown number, just one line. "Please, come. I'm so lonely in here. It's so dark." I didn't reply to any, not a single one. I was following the rules, giving it nothing. But still it was getting harder, because not just fear, it was slowly eating my mind. I couldn't sleep more than 2 or 3 hours a day, jumped at every shadow, kept checking the apartment door over and over. Checked the car lock, even the bathroom door. My weight was dropping, losing focus, and worst of all, I was starting to lose myself. The dreams got worse. Every time I slept, I returned to that green hallway, but the hallway was longer now. Fluorescent lights were flickering and burning in endless darkness, and far away. The door was more open now, not just a crack. A few inches. Pale blue light was coming from inside, and inside that light, something was moving, slowly, as if something was unfolding. I would wake up gasping, entire body drenched in sweat, and I felt certain someone was standing in my bedroom. I would turn on all the lights, check every room, find nothing, then sit on the edge of the bed and try to convince myself, I'm fine. I'm still in control. But the truth was, I was no longer in control. 2.5 weeks after looking through the glass, the worst night began. Saturday night, technically Sunday morning, because the shift had started Saturday night at 11. Saturday shifts are always quiet. Fewer admissions, fewer interruptions, long, empty hours. And that night, Elaine was off. Karen was charge nurse. She knew about Room 12. Everyone knew. But not like Elaine. She didn't carry the protocol list in her pocket. Didn't watch the hallway with that careful gaze. She was a good nurse. But Room 12 was Elaine's territory. And without Elaine, I felt exposed. The shift started in a completely normal way. I did rounds, restocked supplies, responded to some call lights. The east hallway was quiet. Room 12's door, as before, closed. Dark, cold. Walking through the hallway, I felt that familiar pull of attention. And ignored it. At 12:30 a.m., the east hallway lights flickered. Not the whole hospital, just the east hallway. The fluorescent lights trembled, dimmed, lit up again. Less than 2 seconds. At first I thought power fluctuation, but 5 minutes later, it happened again, then again, each time for a little longer. 2 seconds. 3, 4. By 1 in the morning, The lights were flickering every few minutes. No patients were noticing, but I was, and I understood one more thing. Every time the flicker was starting from the very end of the hallway, from the light fixture right near room 12. At 1:15, the lights went completely out, entirely. No flicker, no dim, pure darkness. From the intersection at the nurse's station to the fire exit at the end of the hallway, everything black. The rest of the hospital was completely normal. West hallway bright, nurse's station full of light. But the east hallway, where room 12 was, that was completely dark. I was standing at the intersection staring into the darkness. The red light of the distant exit sign was faintly outlining the hallway. Everything else shadow, a long black tunnel, and at the very end of the tunnel, barely visible in the red light room, 12's door was standing. My feet were pulling back on their own. Karen was walking toward me. Slowly, smoothly, as if her feet weren't touching the floor. Her eyes were completely open, not blinking once. And that smile, that thing wasn't a smile. It was as if joy had been forcibly stretched across someone's face. A human face isn't supposed to be that wide. Her cheeks were trembling. Tears were falling non-stop from her eyes. But the smile on her face wasn't moving a millimeter. "Daniel," she said again. The voice was Karen's, but the words seemed to come from deep underwater. "You don't understand. It's waiting for you." I said nothing. Couldn't speak. Rule 4 was hammering inside my head. Do not respond. Do not respond. Do not respond. Karen came closer. Now she was standing in the full light of the nurse's station. And then I saw something that froze the blood in my chest. Her hands. The fingers of her right hand. Bloody. The skin under the nails had come off, as if she had clawed something very hard. Or something had grabbed her hand. "It's lonely," Karen whispered. Her smile grew even wider. "Lonely for so long. You'd understand if you just looked once." I stepped back. She came forward, at the same speed, as if the distance between us was staying the same. Right then a sound came from the east hallway. Slow, metallic. Click. My chest stopped. Room 12's door. I didn't look toward the hallway, didn't have the courage, but I recognized the sound of the door handle moving. Then, slowly, creak. The door opened further. Karen trembled, exactly like someone trembling with excitement. New tears came to her eyes. "Did you hear?" she whispered. "It's happy." My hands were going numb. Right then a monitor at the nurse's station turned on by itself. Static on the screen. Then an image formed. Security camera feed. East hallway. My breath stopped, because the hallway on the camera was completely empty. Karen wasn't there. I looked at her. She was standing in front of me, crying, smiling, talking, but on the monitor, no one there. Just dark hallway, and at the very end of the hallway, room 12's door fully open. A shape was standing in front of the black doorway. Tall, thin, abnormally long arms, and even through the grainy static of the camera, I could tell it wasn't looking toward the hallway. It was looking at me. I couldn't drive anymore. My hands were trembling so much I couldn't even hold the key properly. On the third try, the car door opened, but my fingers were slipping like wet metal. Behind me, Mercy Lane stood completely still. No sirens, no screaming, no urgency. Just a building, dark, calm, as if watching. I got into the car, slammed the door shut, and immediately locked it. For a few seconds I just sat there, forehead pressed to the steering wheel, trying to draw breath. Then I raised my head. The hospital's main door could be seen through the windshield. Empty. abnormally empty. Then I noticed the main door was half open, not fully, just slightly ajar, as if someone had gone out and forgotten to close it properly. I felt my throat go dry, started the engine. The dashboard lights flashed once, then twice. Suddenly, the radio turned on by itself. Static filled the inside of the car. At first just sound white, monotonous, meaningless. Then slowly, something began building from inside. A rhythm. Talk, talk, talk. I froze. That same sound. The sound of room 12's door, coming from inside my car's speakers. "No," I whispered. "No, no." The static changed again. Then that voice came again. Not Karen. Not Elaine. Nothing like any human. Just that presence, so close, as if someone was sitting beside me, but not occupying space. "You left too quickly, Daniel." I didn't look to the side. Didn't want to, but my eyes were trying on their own. For one moment, the passenger seat looked completely normal, empty, seatbelt hanging. But the cold, that same deep, head-penetrating cold was there, occupied. The radio crackled again. "You always walk away," it said. A pause, then more softly. "But when called, you always come back." The dashboard lights dimmed, the engine trembled, and in the windshield's reflection, Mercy Lane was no longer behind. It was closer, as if not by walking. It had moved forward in one step. The parking lot lights flickered. Once, twice, and in that last flicker, I saw a shadow was standing beside the driver's window. Not knocking, not moving, just waiting and smiling. I didn't speak then, because the words "tonight" didn't sound like a suggestion. It felt like a countdown, which had already begun. "Elaine," I finally said, "I won't go in there." Another silence. This one heavier than the previous ones. "You've already gone in," she said. At first I didn't understand the meaning. Then I did. Because I understood one thing right then: I wasn't just observing anymore. I was becoming a map. Every page, every voice, every call, every footstep. This wasn't random. It was learning me, the way I had learned the hospital. "Listen carefully," Elaine said, her voice lower now. "If you're not going to do this, then leave not just the hospital, leave the town. Don't stay around Mercy Lane. Don't think about it. Don't remember it." "And if I go?" I asked. A long silence. "Then once you go inside, don't hesitate even once. Hesitation means it will catch you." The call ended. I held the phone in my hand for a long time. The screen was still lit. Her last words were hanging in the air, like some bad smell that doesn't easily go away. That night I couldn't sleep. I tried. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. Not room 12. Not the hallway. Something worse. A feeling as if I was standing in a place where there was nothing outside. As if reality itself had folded inward. At 2:58 a.m. I got up. Not because I wanted to. Rather because my body was no longer obeying my decisions. At 3:07 I was back in Mercy Lane's parking lot. Same air, same silence. But this time, everything felt strange. As if the hospital was waiting without moving. The lights inside were dimmer than before. Or maybe my eyes could no longer trust themselves. I went in through the side door. It was open, which I couldn't remember leaving open. The corridor inside was empty, abnormally empty. No sound, no distant footsteps. The sound of the machines seemed to come from underwater. Every step felt heavy, not physically, mentally, as if the building itself was adding weight to my decision. Then I arrived. East hallway, room 12 at the very end. And the first thing that caught my eye, before everything else, was no cold. None at all. Not warm, not cold. Just emptiness. As if there was no longer any temperature in the corridor. And the door closed. Completely closed. No gap, no light, no movement. For 1 second it seemed over. Everything over. Maybe Karen had reset something. Maybe Elaine had been right. Then, the door handle moved. Once. Slowly, very slowly. From inside, every step felt heavy, as if the floor didn't want to bear my weight. The more I went forward, the denser the cold became, like a wall, slowing not just the body but the mind too. I could no longer feel Elaine's presence behind me. Just the direction ahead, room 12, and that door. I came and stood in front of the door. For some time I did nothing, just listened. Hospital. The sound of distant machines, the faint hum of ventilation. Everything seemed fine. But standing in front of room 12, the word fine loses its meaning. I raised my hand, gripped the handle. The metal was cold as ice. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then I pulled. The door opened, without any sound, no creaking, no resistance, as if the door had been waiting. Going inside, all sound stopped. Not the whole hospital, just this place. As if someone had cut the sound around me. I looked back. The door was there, far enough to close. But what was unusual, it wasn't in the corridor as before. It seemed to have moved into another place. The inside of room 12 was large, abnormally large. I couldn't find walls. Couldn't quite make out the ceiling either. There was no light, yet everything could be seen as if the darkness itself was light. In the middle was a bed, a hospital bed, and on top of it, a body. Covered. Still, I didn't look too long. Elaine's words came to mind. Don't look at it. I lowered my eyes and started walking. 1 step, 2 steps. And then I understood the floor inside this room wasn't straight. It was slightly tilted. Not up, not down, not quite in any direction, as if the room itself had lost its balance. I kept walking, and then for the first time I felt it. There was something behind me. Not quite near the door, even closer. I didn't stop. Elaine's words came to mind. Don't engage it. I moved forward, and then a sound, very slowly, like breathing. But this wasn't my breathing. I knew, because I had stopped breathing. I didn't close my eyes. Kept them open, forward, toward the farthest point. And then a feeling came. Not sound, not touch, a pull. So powerful that it felt like someone was pulling the thoughts from inside me. A pull like love. Strangely calm, strangely safe. As if someone was saying, "You're not alone anymore." My feet stopped. I stood, wanted to turn around. Very much. As if my body knew the door is there. I raised my hand, turned on the flashlight. 1 flash of light. And in that moment, I saw something. Where the room's wall was supposed to be, there was nothing there. Just a door. Very ordinary. Not like a hospital door. Older. And that door was behind me. Exactly as Elaine had said. But what frightened me most, it wasn't moving. It was there. Had always been. As if I had been standing in front of it since birth. And then, a whisper came from behind. Not a voice. A feeling, this way. I didn't close my eyes. I didn't turn. But I knew this was that moment. The one that would end things. Or begin them. And I took 1 step forward. Presence. I placed 1 more step inside. The door behind me hadn't closed, but I heard a sound. Not click, not lock. Rather a feeling. As if the door had moved away from existence. I no longer knew whether the hospital was behind me. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. The air inside room 12 was getting heavier. Not that breathing was difficult, but after breathing it felt like I was pulling something wrong inside me. I kept my eyes down. Floor, marks, irregular lines, as if someone had cleaned this place over and over, but nothing had gotten clean. Sometimes it seemed the lines were moving, as if the floor wasn't still, trembling slightly, very slightly. I took another step, then a sound from behind. Not footsteps, not door, breathing. From very close, I stopped. My whole body froze, because I knew I was not alone. Slowly I felt it. Something was on my right side. Very close. So close that I could have turned my neck and seen it. But I didn't. Elaine's voice was ringing in my head. Don't engage it. I kept my eyes down, toward the floor, and right then a voice. Very soft, very calm. Not quite at my ear, but like it was coming from inside me. Daniel. I clenched my teeth. My body was trembling. The voice said again, "You came to see, didn't you?" I said nothing, held my breath, and suddenly, the light from the direction of the bed changed a little. I didn't force myself to look, but I felt it, as if something moved, slowly, very slowly, and then the pull came. Not like before, deeper, more personal, as if someone had put their hand into my thoughts and was saying, "Look this way." Just once. My eyes were welling up. I knew this was that moment. The one where if it breaks, there's no coming back. And right then something appeared on the floor, in front of my feet. Not a shadow. Not a person. Rather, the outline of a door. Very thin, almost invisible, but clear. It hadn't been here before. I stood holding my breath, because I understood this was that second door. The one Elaine had mentioned. But from behind that voice said again, this time from even closer, and even more calmly, "You can still go back." And I understood it was letting me go back, and letting me go forward. Both felt true. I extended my hand, and in that moment the entire air of room 12 trembled. Elaine still hadn't let me go. Her hand was gripping my hand tightly, as if she wanted to make sure I was really there, or something wrong had come back from room 12. "This was supposed to end," she said again, in an even lower voice. "This was supposed to end." But there was no relief in her voice. There was uncertainty. Right then I felt it. Not cold, not warm either. Something more subtle. A pressure. As if the air had suddenly become a little heavier, making it hard to breathe. I slowly turned my head and looked toward room 12. The door was closed, locked, frosted glass dark. Everything normal, completely normal. But my eyes wouldn't move away from there. That was the problem. Because nothing inside me felt safe anymore. "Daniel," Elaine suddenly said. "Don't look at it. Don't start." "I'm not," I said automatically. But I was. Not with my eyes, with something else. And right then I understood. Silence. Not the silence of a hospital. Not the sound of machines, not distant footsteps, not the faint hum of ventilation. This was clean silence, as if the sounds had been cut away again. Elaine felt it too. Her hand left my hand. Her face changed. "No," she whispered. The light above room 12 flickered once. Just once. One blink. Then normal again. And in that one blink, I heard it again. Not through a speaker, not through the wall, not inside my head either. Somewhere in the middle of everything. A voice. Very close, very calm, very familiar. "Daniel." My entire body froze. Elaine stepped back one step. Just one step. That was enough. Because in that moment she had understood there was nothing more inside room 12. What had been there had come out, and it had now learned. The hallway light dimmed a little, as if someone had exhaled, and from the other side of the door, a very slow, very calm sound returned. Not a knock, not crying, not a call either. Just listening, as if someone had pressed their ear right against the door. Elaine gripped my wrist tightly. "Don't respond." Her voice was trembling. "Whatever happens." But I already knew, because the voice wasn't asking permission anymore. It didn't feel the need, and very slowly, almost tenderly, the voice said again, standing in that innermost place inside me, "Now I know how to be with you." And in that moment, everything stopped. Room 12's light went out. The sounds of the corridor disappeared, and the hospital sank again into that old unfamiliar silence. But the story doesn't end here, because some doors, even when closed, are never fully closed. Still, somewhere in some dark room, someone is perhaps listening, and someone is perhaps watching. If you like this story, give the video a like, comment your theory below, and to get more terrifying horror stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon. See you in the next story.